One of the first targets of space exploration that emerged during the technological rivalry of the Cold War was our natural satellite, the Moon. The Soviet Union and the United States engaged in a technological, ideological, and power struggle. They not only wanted to be the first to send a man into space, but also wanted to decide what to call this man. The Soviet Union succeeded in the impressive task of making the cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin the first human in space in 1961, and the United States felt the need to show that they could do better. 8 years later, NASA succeeded. During the Apollo 11 mission, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong became the first people and astronauts to set foot on the Moon. After this giant leap for humanity, a few more Apollo missions repeated the feat, totaling 12 astronauts who walked on the Moon. However, since Apollo 17 in 1972, space agencies shifted their focus to other celestial bodies, such as Mars, asteroids, and even Saturn's moon Titan, while our moon was somewhat forgotten. But after more than 50 years, the Moon has finally returned to the headlines of space exploration. Suddenly, with the growth of various agencies worldwide, such as the European Space Agency (ESA), the Indian Space Research Organization (ISRO), and the China National Space Administration (CNSA), a new space race has begun. Now, several countries have invested fortunes to enhance their aerospace capabilities, but now they don't just want to go there and back. They want to explore it, which seems to have concerned NASA, prompting them to quickly plan the return of manned missions to the Moon before anyone else can get there. The countdown to 2030 has begun. This is the year of the deactivation of the United States Space Station, which may cause the country to lose prominence, making room for countries that once depended on the American space station to rely on the new station. But is there really something so crucial on the Moon that justifies this new space race, or is it all just a power game? What are the real challenges that still exist, and what does the winner of this race gain? The United States and the Soviet Union emerged from World War II as the two strongest countries globally, and from then until the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, they engaged in an unarmed conflict in an attempt to gain global influence. The height of the Cold War was undoubtedly the space race, which began in the 1950s, when the Soviet Union responded to an announcement by the United States that it would also launch artificial satellites. In the next decade, the United States managed to send the first man to the Moon. Neil Armstrong, who uttered the famous phrase, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," would go down in history as a national hero, and the United States would go down in history for the achievement. Driven by the technological competition that both powers waged over the decades of the Cold War, the space race had, above all, symbolic importance. But in recent years, a new space race seems to have emerged. However, this one appears to be publicized for other reasons, with the search for alternatives to counteract the effects of climate change being one of them. The history of the discovery of climate change dates back to the early 19th century, when the greenhouse effect was identified. Over the past 200 years, marked by a series of technological advancements, the impacts of climate change have become more severe and easier to detect. In the 1960s, evidence pointing to the adverse effects of carbon dioxide became increasingly robust, and roughly 2 centuries of population growth and industrialization were enough to plunge the planet into one of the largest and possibly most severe climate crises on record. A 1968 study by the Stanford Research Institute noted that if the Earth's temperature increases significantly, a series of events will occur, such as the melting of polar ice caps, rising sea levels, and warming oceans. Significant temperature changes are almost certain to occur by the year 2000, and these changes can lead to climate change. In this regard, more than reaching the Moon, the idea is to explore, and that's why several countries have undertaken various expeditions to this previously ownerless land. According to Bill Nelson, NASA administrator, China may want to include the Moon in its military space program. In recent years, China has joined the new space race, and more recently, has teamed up with Russia to fund the construction of a research station on the Moon. Is it just the climate crisis prompting these countries to rush to find a solution on the Moon, or is this exploration opportunity disguised as another power struggle, this time between the United States and a united China and Russia? Space exploration and the search for life elsewhere have always focused on the search for one element: water. This is because life not only originated in water but also requires it to survive. For this reason, much of the efforts related to space exploration have always been in search of any sign of this crucial molecule. Since 1645, scientists have worked with the hypothesis that there might be water on the moon. However, in 1892, astronomer William Pickering concluded that, considering the moon has no atmosphere, it couldn't have water. But in the 1960s, a paper published by physicist Kenneth Watson suggested that some substance similar to water could exist on the moon. About half a century later, in 2020, the hypothesis was confirmed, and today it is known that there is not only water on the moon but quite a substantial amount. However, the way this water is stored may make accessing it challenging. In August 2023, India became the first country in the world to successfully land in a little explored yet extremely important region of the moon, the South Pole. This is because the water found on the moon is believed to be crystallized in the form of ice, especially in this region. As the sun shines differently on the south pole of the moon, scientists believe that frozen water deposits may have existed there for billions of years. The difficulty in landing in this region is due to the rugged terrain and limited sunlight, making it an extremely complex task to execute a landing in the area, especially without damaging the spacecraft. In this sense, landing in another region and attempting to reach the South Pole via the surface is also not an easy task, at least not with the technology we have today and considering the terrain geography. Nonetheless, the success of the Indian mission marks a milestone in recent space exploration history. Understanding better how water is stored there can help comprehend how to convert this water into potable water or even rocket fuel. The possibilities are numerous. Besides providing valuable insights into lunar history and past events, such as the formation of Earth's oceans, discovering water on the moon can make future manned missions easier, reduce their costs, and pave the way for a new era of discoveries. However, achieving all this requires advanced technology. The technology available today is much superior to what we had in '69 when we first put a man on the moon, and it was precisely the advancements made in recent decades that made the beginning of this new chapter in the history of space exploration possible. In the early 2000s, NASA sent two small vehicles, called rovers, to Mars, capable of moving and equipped with the latest technology of that time. The idea was to collect data, take photos, and conduct some experiments. The development of rovers may have led to significant advances in various technologies that will be used in lunar missions in the not-too-distant future. In 2012, SpaceX sent the Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station. In 2020, it sent the Crew Dragon, this time on a manned mission. In addition to Dragon and Crew Dragon, SpaceX is also known for launching the Falcon 9, a rocket designed to be reusable. Unlike common rockets, which are made to be discarded after the first use, rockets like Falcon 9, whose parts can be recovered and used again in other missions, make these missions somewhat cheaper, directly or indirectly influencing the space industry. Overall, rocket engines have become increasingly better, and advances in space propulsion have made all the difference, especially regarding longer journeys. Ionic engines, for example, utilize a type of technology that makes them much more efficient and consequently increases the chances of success for this type of mission. The size of rockets is becoming increasingly larger, as is the case with the SpaceX Starship, which is now considered the largest rocket in the world. The increase in rocket size implies that they can transport a larger amount of cargo or people. In 2019, NASA announced the Artemis II program with the goal of returning humans to the moon by 2024. As part of the new program, the U.S. Space Agency introduced the Viper, a lunar rover. The idea is to use it to better study lunar geology and deepen knowledge related to other important aspects, such as the water issue. Besides returning humans to the moon, one of NASA's objectives with the program is to establish sustainable human presence in that location, and for that, the Viper is indispensable. One of its focuses is precisely studying the presence of water in the region, something essential for the success of future missions. In the case of Viper, in addition to being equipped with cutting-edge technology, it was designed to explore specifically the complex surface of the South Pole. The launch of Viper will coincide with the launch of China's lunar rover, Chang'e 6. This is because the Chinese lunar space program, which originated in the 1950s as a partnership between China and the Soviet Union, is also well advanced. When it began, the Chinese space program relied on a knowledge and technology transfer program between China and the Soviet Union. In the 1960s, the two countries broke ties, but China continued its space program. In the following decade, it became the fifth country to successfully launch a satellite into orbit. As part of its space program, in 2021, China started building its own space station. The Tiangong Space Station, as it was named, represents a milestone in both the history of Chinese space exploration and a threat to the imminent decommissioning of the American space station in 2030. Thus, countries that previously depended on the American space station would now depend on another station, which could be the Chinese one or perhaps a commercial station. The clashes between global powers in the space race are not just about flags or footprints on the moon. They are shaping the future of exploration and terrestrial influence, and the entry of companies like SpaceX into this scenario is changing many things. Among the main technical challenges related to lunar exploration is the fact that it is a journey that takes days, which means thinking about how to send equipment, people, and supplies safely and efficiently. Because the moon's surface has no atmosphere, it is extremely uneven. Therefore, executing a successful landing on the lunar surface is not an easy task. The temperature of the moon's surface can also be a problem for both equipment and people, as it undergoes large temperature variations, ranging from one extreme to another. In this sense, cosmic radiation and lunar dust are also concerns. Additionally, more efficient propulsion systems, as well as improved communication and data transmission systems, prove to be indispensable for the success of future missions, especially the most ambitious ones. One company that faced various challenges was SpaceX. In April 2023, the much-anticipated launch of the world's largest rocket, the Starship, did not go as expected. After the incident, SpaceX and the Federal Aviation Administration concluded that 63 corrections would be necessary for the rocket to be launched again. The explosion occurred because two modules that were supposed to separate did not. However, in the space industry, the launch was not considered a total failure. After all, the launch was a test, and tests serve exactly that purpose. Another point concerns resource ownership. Despite the Outer Space Treaty prohibiting lunar property ownership, the United States, Luxembourg, Japan, and the United Arab Emirates already have laws allowing the extraction of space resources by private companies. The Outer Space Treaty interprets the lunar territory more or less like the high seas, considering it a space over which no state can claim any form of sovereignty. Here, what stands out is the possibility of private companies legally selling these resources to different countries. What exactly will happen in the future is unknown. What is known is that the two major global powers of today are facing significant diplomatic challenges. U.S. legislation, for example, prohibits collaboration with China, excluding the country from U.S.-led initiatives. On the other hand, China is building a space station that emerges as a potential alternative to the American space station. SpaceX is showing pioneering spirit, indicating that this race can also have a commercial bias. Is lunar exploration once again being used as a means to increase global influence and determine who owns the ball this time? Comment below what you think. Speaking of exploration, want to know how ExxonMobil is exploring and completely dominating a country? I'll tell you in this video on the screen. So hit play and I'll see you there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. A big hug and see you soon. Do you know which business model offers high profit margins, immense scalability, and requires low initial investment? The startup market specializing in software development is the optimal choice to bring together all these advantages. However, the only place where you will truly find a highly scalable service that demands low investment is with Roadmap. Roadmap has global experience providing consulting and developing apps for startups in the United States, Europe, and Latin America, making it by far the best option for new entrepreneurs. If you want to venture into the premier market, contact Roadmap right away through the website www.roadmap.co/home or via email at contact@roadmap.co.